Hello viewer and welcome to the video. Spoiler warning now, if you have not seen Arcane and you want to see it, you plan to see it, click out of this video or watch it on mute, it helps my viewership, thanks. If you're not planning on watching Arcane and you don't care about spoilers, or if you've already watched Arcane, then you are good to proceed. I love Arcane. I don't love League. I don't care for League, I've never played League, and I probably will never touch League. And I think that's okay. But I love Arcane. The art style and direction and the storytelling, just phenomenal. So I'm gonna rank my top 10 favorite Arcane characters, and this is a completely unserious ranking. So I'm gonna start from the bottom up. So number 10 being out of my 10 favorite characters, they're at the bottom, and number 10 is going to Heimerdinger. So in the first season, I didn't really care for him, but I feel like his arc throughout season 1 and 2 put together was really interesting because you see the way he looks at life because of his super long lifespan compared to the regular people with regular lifespans or like human lifespans. And he's in this position where he has a lot of power and a lot of influence, and he can do something to improve the lives of the people in Zon, but he's just really like slow at it. It's not really a priority to him. And him working so closely with Jace and Viktor, you really see that stark contrast between him and then the urgency in which people like Jace and Viktor, and especially Viktor, there's so much more urgency for them because their time is limited, especially after Viktor's diagnosis, right? And so I liked that like frustration from the scientist's side trying to improve people's lives, and then the concern and fear even from Heimerdinger's side because he's like, oh, this is like, we don't want to push something out that's unsafe. He says that both in season 1 and season 2. And I think it was really cool seeing how in the alternate universe, he was there for what? People say about 3 years? I didn't do the math myself. But in that time, they don't tell us this, but I think people have been like headcanoning that he used his position to enact more change faster because we see how much more integrated both Topside and Zon are with each other, like literally on the bridge, like how much more direct and obvious can you be? They're meeting in the middle on the bridge, and the background characters that we see from Zon are like closer to Topside, and their businesses are thriving. They're like chef guy, right? And Heimerdinger is down in the Undercity singing to the children and stuff. And I would like to believe that headcanon is like has got some merit to it because Heimerdinger brought over the experience and knowledge that he had from his world to this world and was like, I can do something about this and like make life better, especially because he visited and started living in the the Undercity with Ekko and his people. So he saw firsthand what they were going through and what the people needed. Like what Ekko said, you need to give them what they need to like live and thrive, not just survive. So I would like to think that he had some part in doing that. But also, I think the way his story ended was pretty decent because he was so ready and unafraid to put himself in danger and like even sacrifice himself for the greater good and to help Ekko do this thing. And I think it's because he was so ready or he was so accepting of like what he needed to do because he had finally, like in all of his long lifetime, he finally like felt like he was living after he met Ekko. Like that's what he told him. So I think that it's sweet that his story ended with him giving up that long lifespan for something. Like he found something worth sacrificing for. Next up on my list at number 9 would be Silco. So obviously I don't really like him as a person, if he were a person, but I think he's a very fascinating villain. And the thing is with Arcane is that I don't think any one person is truly the villain, except for, their government or system, the classism as a whole. But like each person, even the people up in Topside on the council, they do things out of their own personal belief that it is the right thing. One thing that the show does a really good job of is showing the reasoning and the motivations behind each character, each main character at least. So with Silco, in the first season, before we get like more of his backstory, he's definitely like an antagonist, but he did take up the mantle of keeping order relatively in the lanes after Vander died. Are his methods the best? No. Is pumping drugs into your city the best? Not at all. But he was acting out of interest for Zahn, the image, the dream that he has of what Zahn could be. And now that we got to see some of his past in season 2, it's really interesting seeing how he and Vander really were like brothers. And the dream, the vision of Zahn was both of theirs, and they both had the same goal, but just vastly different ways of approaching it and different methods, and ultimately different, like, values, I guess. Because Vander put the dream of Zahn on hold to take care of, what's her name, Felicia? Vine Powder's mom. To take care of her kids, Vine Powder, after she died. Meanwhile, Silco prioritized Zahn. I feel like their dynamic was asking the question of, like, putting your community first, like the people around you, or putting the politics of it and, like, fighting against oppressors first. I don't know. But he's a really compelling villain because he really believes that he's doing good for his city, for his people, even if it's hurting a lot of his own people. And as far as his parenting goes, listen, don't get me started. He's not a great father. Okay? Did he love Jinx? I'm sure he did. And I think he just showed it in the only way that he knew how to. But that doesn't mean it was a good way. Definitely creepy vibes there. Uncomfortable energy. I'm sure he cared about her. I mean, clearly he cared about her. But does that make him a good father? No, I don't think so. I don't. I feel like he was what was available as far as parental figures go in Jinx's life. Okay, number 8 on my list is Sevika. She definitely was an antagonist in season 1, and seeing how she would hang out at the last drop and like would be seemingly cordial with Vander, if not even like comrade like with him, and then seeing how she betrayed him essentially and sided with Silco was definitely antagonist vibes and frustrating, you know, as someone rooting for the quote-unquote good guys. But I like her as a character because when you look at it from her point of view, she saw Vander as like not strong enough or not bold enough to enact change quick enough for the people. She was like, she wanted to take arms against the enforcers. Meanwhile, Vander wanted peace, and she saw someone who was willing to fight back against Topside. And so I think in her eyes, she really did see Silco as the better option, the better chance for Zahn to be liberated. And she has a very like hard outer shell, right? She's really tough, but I feel like deep down, like, she is so driven because she is so caring about the people that are being oppressed, you know, about people around her. And her dynamic with Jinx really interests me because season 1, they did not like each other, right? But in season 2, I liked seeing how, like, that scene where they're in Silco's office and they start, like, sharing with each other how they each were taking care of Silco's business for him and doing everything for him. She looks at Jinx in a different light, I think, from then on. And then when Isha is taken to prison and Sevika breaks this news to Jinx and she starts seeing her hallucinations again, Sevika, instead of looking like annoyed or impatient like she seemed to be in season 1 with Jinx's mental breaks, she looked concerned, which I think was like a first, because before in season 1 she literally said to Silco she's like one breakdown away from like snapping or something or whatever, but here she looks like caring towards Jinx and they like bond and get closer. And I think that was nice because after seeing how they both were essentially pawns for someone else to get what they want, I feel like she saw Jinx on a much more level plane. And as a person, and maybe even as a, I don't want to say victim, but as someone that doesn't have as much control and autonomy as she might have thought, because Jinx was crafted in Silco's vision, just like how he was trying to build Zahn in his vision. Okay, so my number 7 goes to Vi. I think she's just such a strong person. They didn't do that thing where they made her a Mary Sue, where she's just rough and tough without any flaws or, insecurities or fears of her own. She had a lot of emotional depth. And listen, Vi gets too much hate, okay? And maybe it's because I relate to her as an older sibling, but all she ever wanted was to make Vander proud and protect her family. She went on those jobs to make Vander proud, to hopefully provide for their family. When it came to Vander's rescue mission, I think most people can agree on this. It wasn't because she didn't trust Powder, it was because she loved Powder so much and was so afraid of her getting hurt or losing her that she didn't want her anywhere around it. When she lost her whole family and then found out that Powder was part of the reason why, yeah, she had a lapse in judgment. She had a lapse of self-control, but she was a young teenager when that happened. And then once she saw that Powder was in danger because she saw Silco standing over her, she tries to go back to her, but we know she gets kidnapped and thrown in prison. Being thrown in an adult prison as a young teen and then getting beaten regularly by the guards and then still coming out of that and immediately your first thought is, I need to get to Powder and save her and protect her and take care of her. She's so resilient for that. And all throughout season 1 and 2, her priority is her family, what remains of it at least. She is constantly trying to get through to Powder in Jinx, and when she accepts that Jinx is now Jinx, she doesn't agree with what she does, and so she tries to stop her, but when they reconcile in the mines, and Jinx and her find that note that Vander left for Silco, she sees their history being reflected in hers and Jinx's. She realizes that forgive and reconcile is worth a shot and is more important than giving up hope on this person. Giving up hope that they are gone forever and that they can't change for the better. And so after that, for the rest of the show, she is trying to get her family back together and protect her family to heal Vander, but with Jinx said it herself, Vi will never ever give up on her and never leave her to be scared and alone. So while she has a very tough exterior, she is full of love and compassion and just will do anything, even give herself up to enforcers and take the fall. Or in season 2, she would put herself on the front lines in hopes to secure a future for Jinx wherever she was out there. So she slays. Number 6 is Ambessa. This is one of the characters where I don't really, I don't like them as a person, if they were a person, but I like what they did with her character, a lot, because it is just fun sometimes having an antagonist that doesn't get a redemption arc, She is bad, and she stays bad. Her, she still has an arc, but it's not a redemption arc. Also, really like that Arcane is not afraid to make really big, beefy woman. I was gonna say that about Sevika too, but Ambessa's even bigger. She's even more muscular. Visually, A+. But her motivations are also really strong. I guess she's a very driven woman. Big goals and is willing to do anything to achieve them. And at first in season 1, I was like, oh, okay, she's definitely that ominous new character that we get towards the end of a season who's gonna be a problem in the next season. And problem she was. So at first I was like, okay, I can understand why she sent Mel away in season 1 because she said that Mel made her vulnerable. And so I believed her. But after season 2 and learning what we learned, I was like, I don't know if I could trust anything that she said because it is clear that she saw Mel as a weapon first before her daughter. And I'm sure she loved her in her way, but she probably loved her weapon more. But she wasn't just a hard, cold person because when that Rictus guy died, she seemed genuinely hurt by that, I like that they add that depth to her character that she cares about some people, but she just cares about power more. Specifically, power that will help defend her against the Black Rose, whatever she did to them. Whatever she did to them, I wish we saw a little more of what she stole. I don't know if they were talking about Mel being what she stole or what, but she just, Ambessa had her own motivations off to the side and was working everyone in that council and the whole city really to her gain, and it was just ruthless. She was the wolf using Caitlyn's grief against her and all that, so it was cool to see such a ruthless character and not have them soften and like everyone like, you know, gets rainbows and butterflies at the end. She like stayed ruthless to the end where she called her daughter the wolf. Like she got what she wanted in a way because her daughter became what she was trying to mold her and shape her to be all this time. Speaking of Medardas, my 5th favorite character is Mel. My opinion on her changed from season 1 to season 2. Season 1, I was thinking she was like a low-key secret antagonist because she was very much manipulating Jace, playing him to get what she wanted, which was Hex Tech. And she even owns up to that in season 2, where she's like, you were a good investment, but she saw it as being for good. In season 2, when we learn more about her backstory and like her blood, her abilities, I guess, like she's a mage, I feel like we got to see a whole different side of her where she was no longer this smart, cunning, manipulative council member, but a confused child who didn't know any of her real lore and felt betrayed by her mother for being kept in the dark about this secret, and such a big secret at that. And we saw a lot of her like perseverance in action, where she figured out her prison and she figured out that the deceiver was not really her brother, and then she plays along with the deceiver mage person, and then at the very end when she like gives the witch what she wants, which is her mother, they reveal she played her, and then she not only played her but she also like overpowered her, which was impressive because she literally has only known about her abilities for like a short while. And I like that even though all throughout season 1 and like most of season 2 Mel has butt heads with her mother and even like, you know, gave her mother up to her worst enemy, she still at the end held her mother, like sadly as she died. Their relationship is just so complicated. I think Mel understands that everything her mother did was for her and the family, but you know, she obviously hated the way her mother went about it and how cruel her mother could be. And that's a lot of pressure, like being the heir to whatever they were an heir to whatever their family was. She still held fast in her beliefs in that violence is not always the answer, even though she has never lived in Zon, but she was always like, I draw the line at Hextech. I think we could offer their independence and stuff like that. So I feel like she's a strong character for standing up against the Medarda standard and standing up against her sister witch too. She's not letting her blood, either side of her blood or of her heritage, define who she is. And I like that. Okay, number 4 is Jinx. Jinx is such a fun character and also such a tragic character. I think she's a great mirror to how people end up where they end up, especially when traumatic things happen to them very young. And she was definitely like kind of a anti-hero, maybe even like an antagonist in season 1. I know everyone loves her anyways, because how could you not? But she was definitely not hesitant to kill people. Obviously, having seen Act 1 of Season 1, we know why, you know, she went through something wildly traumatic and then got taken in by Silco, which isn't exactly the most peaceful role model. Her journey is so interesting because she kind of terrorizes Zon. Everyone's like kind of like afraid around her, right? And she definitely doesn't care if she kills the Firelight. She goes from kind of this wild card and this person that the other Zonite council people don't take seriously. I think they saw Jinx as kind of like Silco's weakness and they didn't like that she was like a distraction to him. But she goes from that to becoming a symbol for the Undercity, kind of against her will, but she steps up to it eventually, you know, after seeing that she means something to these people after she broke them out of jail. And then to being a hero for her sister, not just being a hero to Zon, but specifically to her sister. It was cool to see her go from using her explosive violence for just chaos and like self gain. It was really for Silco gain, but to using her abilities to fight for Zon. It's so tragic that like she internalized all the things that were said to her and about her so much, like stuff that what's his face, Milo said, and that became her whole identity. But I think it was cool that she saw her younger self in Isha, and I think that kind of brought Powder back out in her when she was hanging out with Isha. And her relationship with Vi was so enthralling. Like, I was always rooting for them to have a happy ending, or as happy can be in Arcane, which, yes, I am a Jinx is alive believer. the evidence is just all there, you know? Like, she's really fast, there was a purple streak in the explosion, Caitlyn was smiling at the end, the blimp, all of that, yeah. Anyways, her arc with Vi was so good. Like, she went from, like, hating her and feeling betrayed by her because she felt that Vi abandoned her because she didn't know that Vi got kidnapped. And then she felt, I think, like, remorse and, like, guilt. Then when Vi comes back, at first she's really happy. But then after that, she feels like that she was just another person that betrayed her because she was with the enforcer. But throughout season 2, when she sees how much Vi loves her, like she said in the tunnel, that like there really is no place on earth that Vi won't find her in. And near the end, she said that you're never gonna give up on me. I feel like in the end, she loved Vi more than herself, obviously. She wanted to sacrifice herself so that Vi could be like free of worrying about Jinx. And I think she also was just because she lost Isha. She really does feel like she believes that she's a Jinx. She truly thinks that she curses everyone. I think she was doing it to try to protect Vi from herself because she felt like something was just going to happen to Vi eventually because it always does around Jinx. So I think she's an incredibly tragic but incredibly well-written character. It hurt even more to watch all of that after seeing episode 7. I think it was episode 7, but the alternate universe episode where we see Powder when Powder never turned into Jinx. Just seeing how happy and healthy she is and how much more stable she is and seeing what could have been and then going back to like our Jinx, it was like it just hurts so much more. Number 3 on my list is Caitlyn. The reason I put Caitlyn so high on my list is because her story, her arc, is such a powerful political commentary. She starts out as a young, naive, optimistic, but very sheltered person. And when she gets a glimpse of how bad things are in the Undercity, she goes on the savior arc where she's like, let me like speak up for you guys, let me bring you guys to the council so you can speak to the council and let's change things around here. This is, you know, messed up that you guys are living like this. Then her mother gets blown up and understandably she's really angry, but she still is level-headed where she's like, no, that was the act of one individual. I'm gonna hunt that individual down, but it was just the one individual. But then when the second attack on Topside happens at the memorial, she even says that like one vicious act and like I see how easy it is to hate them, like all, right? Like she's saying them like she's grouping them all together now. So after that, we see her kind of harden and she goes up to the council and goes like, I'm gonna hunt her down, and she ropes Vi into it. And then she gasses them. That was wild. I was like, I can forgive if you get a little like rough with them while you're trying to get Jinx, but going straight to chemical warfare and using what your mother built to help the Undercity to gas them just to get to one person, a single person that you're hunting. That was wild. I was like, oh, I don't know if I don't like that. Earlier, I think in the same season, she says that innocents will get caught in the crossfire, but now she's okay with gassing innocents. I feel like we see her change so much and so rapidly in season 2. I know there's like slight time skips, but still, she really flips a page, turns a page. And then when she does have Jinx in her sights, she's willing to put two people in danger. One being her fellow enforcer Vi, the second person being a literal child, and she's willing to endanger them just to end Jinx. She no longer cares. Or she deep down probably cares, but right now is blinded by her rage and her grief. And so I feel like that's a great example of how easily people can be swayed from side to side due to their own personal suffering and stuff like that, without thinking about the larger suffering of the people around them. And she really believed that by putting an end to Jinx, no matter the cost, it'll be better for everyone, including the Undercity. Like, I think that's what she really believed. And then, after being promoted by Ambessa, she, like, goes full martial law. And she's, like, threatening Sinjid, or however you say his name, and saying, like, I'll put you in a dungeon, which was, again, also very unlike Season 1 Caitlyn. She's essentially, like, everyone's calling her fascist. We only see her kind of start to snap out of it just throughout time, after she's not grieving her mother as intensely, but also because she gets reminded of what she really values. I think that conversation with Sinjid really changed her perspective again, where she asks him why he does all these terrible things, and he said, you know, because of love, which I think is like one of the main themes of Arcane. But you see her face kind of soften there, and I think it's a great subtle way that they showed how Caitlyn realized that no one believes that they are the bad guy, right? Everyone does things because they think it is for the better of either themselves or their people or someone they love, and obviously she betrays Ambessa eventually because she realized that's not the person that she is, and that's not the person that she wants to be. So I think she starts to see that, like, these people aren't villains, they're just hurt people trying to save and protect the ones that they love. Number 2 is Viktor. I love Viktor and his story so much. I like that he's one of the only, if not the only person from the Undercity working closely with the council and in the academy, at least that, like, of the main characters that we see. I like that he's the only one with that experience and that perspective. I love that he was so driven to not only heal himself and his leg and then eventually his disease after he found out, but to help everyone in the Undercity. His and Jace's dream of giving Hextech to the people and his absolute refusal to use Hextech to build weapons. He was just so grounded, I think, and not in it for himself, purely at least. And I think his arc with the Hexcore specifically was really fun to watch because he was like, this is gonna solve everything. We can do so much with this. It's gonna save people's lives. And then when the incident with Skye happens, he's like, this thing is not what we thought and it needs to be destroyed. Like, I'm gonna destroy it. And then, he dies, and then Jace fuses the Hexcore to him and it saves him, and he's like not all that happy. Like, he's like, I was supposed to die. You said you would destroy the Hexcore. And at that point in time, Victor's like anti-Hexcore, and then Jace is pro-Hexcore because he's like, but Viktor, our dream, what about giving Hextech to the people? It can save lives. It saved your life, But then as time goes on and Viktor becomes Robot Jesus, he is like pro Hexcore again, and he's like, oh, I'm healing people. This is the evolution. Then Jace goes on his little trip and becomes anti-Hexcore because he's like, this destroys humanity. I think it's fun that their views on Hexcore change, swap places. The scene where Jace just blasted Viktor and the Noxians are invading the commune and Vander's not Vander anymore, and Viktor's thoughts are narrating over the scene is so beautiful. Seeing how he is in season 1, I was like, how does he end up being machine takeover guy, right? But him saying that the doctor was right, suffering will never go away because of humanity, and suffering is caused by our human emotions and desires and stuff like that, and we'll never know peace. That really helped, at least for me, to tie over how he went from, oh, I'm just healing people's ailments, to the glorious evolution where I'm turning everyone into robots. Otherwise, without that monologue, without that single line saying humanity, I would have been like, how did we get here? I like that even though he kind of became a villain, I understood why. I understood how in his eyes he was saving people and he was helping people, and by removing their humanity, they would no longer suffer. Giving them metal bodies, they would no longer get ill or get injured and die. So I like that. As wild of a take that removing humanity is, I could understand where he's coming from. And of course, at the end, when he realizes his mistake, he wants to correct it ASAP. All he ever wanted to do was help people. And even to the end, even though on the outside it was definitely bad that he was turning everyone into robots, to him, again, he was just trying to help. I think that's a character trait that stayed consistent in him all throughout season 1 and 2, is just that he only ever wanted to help. And my number 1 favorite Arcane character is Ekko. I mean, he clutched up at the end. What more is there to say? I do have more to say. From the beginning, he just wants to look after and take care of his own, right? The people of the Undercity. And seeing after the time skip where he had built a safe haven, you could see how selfless he was just from day 1, going out and putting himself in danger to stop Shimmer smuggling and fighting Jinx and Silco's people, dedicating his life, his time to building something up for other people to thrive in is very heroic in itself. But then at the very end of this series, it's him who stops Viktor. He's the hero of the story. But I think his most heroic act, I think his most selfless act, was when he went to the alternate universe. He had an opportunity there to steal that Ekko's life and live out this dream life where most of his friends are alive and his father figure is still alive. And not only are they alive, they're all kind of thriving. The Undercity is struggling less. He's got the girl that he likes. He's a prestigious, like, inventor, and he could have just stayed, but he gave that up. He let go of it to go back to the objectively worse universe and do what needed to be done, even though it meant giving up a life that he would have loved to have. I think he is one of the most selfless characters, and he's also a genius. He built his hoverboard, and then he figured out time travel. Like, hello? So those are my top 10 favorite Arcane characters. I would love to know your guys' top 10 or worst 10. That'll be it for me this video. Thank you for watching. Your homework is to go look at a bird. Bye!